Well, we did it, y'all. We survived another Pocono race. And now we don't have to worry about another one for... oh, crap. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Over the last several weeks since NASCAR returned from its pandemic-induced hiatus, the Cup Series has raced pretty much every day of the week almost at this point, due to one reason or another. Midweek races have been scheduled, rain delays have forced races to be run on Mondays, Thursdays, pretty much every day of the week at this point. But what's important to note is that the doubleheader weekend that we are now in the midst of at Pocono Raceway was planned at the beginning of the season. This was supposed to be a historic weekend, a doubleheader at a NASCAR Cup Series track. Pocono for years has had 2 races a year. NASCAR this year thought it would be a good idea, and I think most people applauded them for the idea of running both Cup races in the same weekend rather than traditionally run one in June and then like a month and a half later come back and run one in like July. This made a lot of sense. It was more efficient, and I think it was done with the at-track fan experience very much in mind. Before the pandemic, obviously, there were reports that this weekend's event at Pocono Raceway had seen a huge boost in ticket sales compared to individual weekends from years prior. The idea of ARCA, trucks, Xfinity, and 2 Cup Series races in the same weekend was enough to lure in thousands of fans from the sounds of it, from all over the area. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, obviously this race was run without any fans in attendance. And as a result, us fans all now watching at home are forced to sit through back-to-back days of Pocono. Now look, I'll cut to the chase. Today's race at Pocono, it wasn't an awful race, but it wasn't a good race. It was average for Pocono standards, which basically translates to not very good. Just not very exciting. To go from Talladega Monday afternoon, that was thrilling throughout. I called it maybe the best race I have ever watched in my 16 years of being a fan. To go from Talladega, which was 3 hours of non-stop edge-of-your-seat action, to what we had today at Pocono. Again, not a terrible race by any stretch of the imagination. It's just too strong of a jump. Anyway, I'll talk more about the race in general in just a few minutes. I'll put this thing on the groovy gauge, of course, so stay tuned for that. But to start with, I want to talk through the top finishers in today's race, talk about the winner, and talk about some of the big storylines from this event. So there are your top 20 finishers. Kevin Harvick gets his 3rd win of the season to tie second place finisher Denny Hamlin now for the most wins in the Cup Series so far this season. Now, Kevin Harvick has won a lot of races in his career, especially if you just look at the last 6 or 7 years since he joined Stewart-Haas Racing. He has won a lot of races, but this was his first ever win at the Tricky Triangle. So pretty noteworthy there, pretty special win, I'm sure, adding a new trophy to the trophy case. This race ended with a very long green flag run. In fact, green flag pit stops and the strategy surrounding them likely determine the outcome of this race. Eric Almirola, who you see there, got a solid top 5 finish, a great run for that team, best run I've seen from them all season without a doubt. He led a lot of laps, even won stage 2, but he opted to go with 4 tires at the end of this race. Meanwhile, Harvick and Hamlin went with 2 tires. They got back on the racetrack several seconds ahead of Eric Almirola, and Almirola was never able to come close to eating into that gap or making up track position once things got single filed out. He just really had no chance. Tires did not play that much of a factor today, so the 10 teams' decision to go with 4 tires, perhaps a questionable one, but given that there's another race tomorrow, I'm sure that's one that a lot of teams are going to look at and learn from. If you look at that top 5 or 6, a lot of those cars were up in the top 5 or 6 pretty much all race long. Kyle Busch was consistently threatening. Martin Truex Jr. even led a little bit late in this race. Now, Christopher Bell finishing 4th, the rookie. That was impressive. He started deep in the field in today's race, but methodically throughout the race worked his way forward. Their strategy at the end of this thing, they stayed out longer than a lot of other drivers did, which meant they had a little bit fresher tires at the end. It worked out for them. Ultimately, Christopher Bell with a very impressive top 5 finish. I believe that is, now his best finish of his young Cup Series career. So credit to Christopher Bell. Ultimately, as you can see here, looking at the top 5, top 6, it really was a Stewart-Haas Racing versus Joe Gibbs Racing kind of day. Early in the race, guys like Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney seemed competitive, led some laps. Logano was contending for the lead on multiple restarts, but he faded to about 7th, 8th place and then actually cut a tire down in the closing lap, so you don't see him there in the top 10, top 15, unfortunately for Logano. But it was all said and done. It was Harvick with his teammate Eric Almirola and even Clint Bowyer not too much further down there. The Stewart-Haas cars looked really good as a whole, minus of course the rookie Cole Custer a little bit further down there, but he's young, still getting experience, so you don't expect him to run up there with Harvick. But then you got the Gibbs cars. Hamlin was closing in on Kevin Harvick late. They ended up crossing the finish line only about 0.6 of a second between them, so Hamlin was closing late. If not for some of the dirty air effects, there's a good chance Hamlin would have had the opportunity of getting to his bumper, but all day long, we'll talk about this at the end, it was very difficult to pass, especially when it came to passing the leader. We did not see many green flag passes for the lead in today's race. We saw some on restarts, but as far as long green flag runs are concerned, I think we only saw maybe 2 that I can remember. One for sure. There might have been a second one, but my point is, it was hard to pass the leader. So that likely came into play. It was a track position race, which is why the 4-tire call from Eric Almirola's crew seemed a little surprising, perhaps. Might have cost them a shot at battling head-to-head with their teammate at the end there, but still a 3rd place finish for them. Very impressive. Let's talk about some of the other most noteworthy finishers here, because you will notice, looking at this list, there are no Chevrolets in the top 10. 0. Zip. No Hendrick cars, no Ganassi cars. You got Matt Kenseth in 11th, the highest finishing Chevrolet today. That's shocking. Awesome day for Michael McDowell. He legitimately earned that top 10 finish, finishing 8th place. Another good run for Front Row Motorsports this year. We've given John Hunter Nemechek a lot of credit for a couple solid runs. Give Michael McDowell some credit as well. He had a great run today. Chris Buescher as well with a solid top 10. Both Roush cars there in the top 15. So a good day for Ford. Ultimately, it was a really good day for Ford. A pretty decent day for Toyota. Of course, Eric Jones got caught up in a wreck when Kurt Busch was slow at the exit of turn 3. Jones kind of swerved and hit the brakes to avoid him. Tyler Reddick ran into the back of him, and Reddick and Jones wrecked. That was really the only major incident in today's race. Alex Bowman got into the wall and cut a tire down late. I already mentioned Joey Logano blowing a tire and suffering major damage at the end of this thing. Chase Elliott had a transmission issue that cost him on restarts. He ultimately finished outside the top 20. Jimmy Johnson ended up outside the top 20. He had an incident on pit road that cost him early on. But when it's all said and done, Kevin Harvick gets his first win at Pocono and breaks up kind of the Joe Gibbs streak that they've kind of dominated Pocono the last several years. And you saw they came close. I think the Gibbs cars will be a force to be reckoned with tomorrow afternoon. But SHR, some of the Fords, able to get the upper hand just barely today. But those are your top finishers. Those are the top storylines from today's race. I want to spend a good amount of time talking about the way the race played out, the way the cars ran on track. Of course, I'll put this thing on the Groovy Gauge at the end, so stay tuned for that in just a moment. Sometimes I worry that I'm a little too hard on Pocono Raceway. The track is beautiful. It's out in the middle of the mountains up there in Pennsylvania. It's gorgeous. You look at when they zoom out and show like the helicopter or the blimp shots of the entire surrounding area, the place looks gorgeous. I know there are a lot of hardcore Pocono Raceway fans who love going to the track each and every year, every summer, twice a summer usually. So when I say that Pocono Raceway is my least favorite track on the NASCAR schedule, sometimes I worry that I'm being too hard on it. Maybe I'm missing something that somebody else sees. Maybe there's something about this track. There's a charm about this track that I'm just not seeing. Maybe I got new glasses recently. Maybe now I'd finally be able to see what everyone else or what some of these other fans see at Pocono. But I'm sorry guys, Pocono just, it really doesn't matter what rules package you bring to Pocono. It's going to have issues. Just in the Gen 6 era alone, we've seen high horsepower, medium downforce. We've seen high horsepower, high downforce. We've seen low horsepower, high downforce. We've seen nearly every basic combination under the sun, and it has not, none of them have produced consistently good racing at Pocono Raceway. And today's race was mediocre at best. Restarts, especially in the first couple stages where we saw a few spins, and we obviously had the stages and the competition caution. Restarts were fantastic. 3, 4, 5 wide, even into the turn 1. You would still see 3 and 4 wide, close quarters action throughout the first half a lap. But of course, before long, everyone gets single file. Everyone gets extremely strung out. 7, 8 seconds between first place and third place, just like every package that's ever been used at Pocono Raceway. Now, the one frustrating difference between the current rules package with the big rear spoiler and maybe past Pocono rules packages, not all, but some of the past Pocono rules packages, is that with that huge rear spoiler and the wake, the dirty air that creates, it is difficult for drivers to run close behind each other. Hold on, I got some diecast cars here. I didn't plan on doing this. With the large rear spoiler coming into play, you never see two cars get maybe closer than like this to each other in the turns, I should say. They would draft up on the straightaway, but the moment they get into the turn, big buffer would come out because the car in second place, because of the dirty air created by the lead car, just could not turn. You cannot turn. You'd see cars go into the turns like this. Like, let me show you, like this, where the second place car is looking slightly lower than the first place car because they're trying to get some air on the front end. I don't know why I'm turning into Larry Mack here, but my point is, and we saw this at the end with Hamlin versus Harvick. Hamlin trying to close the gap on Harvick, but can never get closer than like what I basically just showed you. The rear spoiler is disrupting the air so significantly, and there's not enough horsepower to kind of overcome that resistance. It's very difficult when two drivers are, especially in clean air, it's very difficult for the second place car to make a move and pass the first place car. We saw this come into play very heavily last June, the first race at Pocono last year with this rules package, where we saw almost no passing anywhere in the field. It was hard to watch, I'll be quite honest. They added the PJ1 for the July race last year, and last July's Pocono race was okay. It was pretty decent. You at least saw passing because guys could run a slightly different line in the turns, and get runs on each other. Today's race was somewhere in between the two. They had the PJ1 out on the track, so you did see drivers kind of running maybe a half a lane or a full lane higher at times, especially in turns 1 and turns 3. The tunnel turn is basically a one groove turn, as is, always has been. So you did see some passing today, but really the issue with Pocono Raceway is just the fact that cars get so strung out at this track. Pocono Raceway's charm is solely reliant on the fact that many of its races turn into strategy races. And that was very much the case today, with tires coming into question. When do people pit? How do people short pit? Wait for it to get longer. At the end of the race, there's a threat of rain. So guys like Newman, a few other drivers are kind of staying out later than others to maybe catch the rain at the right time. I thought that might have been a strategy. At the end of the stages, we saw drivers pitting with 3 to go in the stage to play the track position game, to play the strategy game. Strategy, very much as per usual, came into play at Pocono Raceway. And I would say if we look back in history, I think back to like 2015, I can't remember, I think it was the July race in 2015. You saw fuel mileage come into play at the end of that race when Kyle Busch and Joey Logano ran out of fuel and resulted in pandemonium, mayhem at the end of that race. The most memorable moments I can think of in Pocono Raceway history have something to do with fuel strategy, tire strategy, something like that, which is exciting and interesting, and I like it in the sense that it's a change of pace. You know, it doesn't get much different than the wall-to-wall pack racing we saw at Talladega versus the more technical, strategic racing we saw at Pocono today. I mean, those are two very opposite styles of racing, and both can be enjoyed, you know, at different times. But ultimately the issue with Pocono is 1, it's hard to pass, and 2, cars get so separated from each other, and that's not an issue with this current package. That's happened with every rules package NASCAR's ever chosen to run at Pocono. So don't blame the current package for big gaps between first, second, third place. But what you can blame the current package for is the difficulty to pass once you do catch up to somebody, especially at certain times, especially at certain points on the racetrack. The PJ1 certainly helps, but also this race being, I believe, cooler than last July's race was, mainly due to the rain and all the stuff threatening and the cloud cover. The PJ1 likely did not become activated quite as significantly as it was in July, when it really worked and we really saw a decent Pocono race at the end of last summer. So that was really the issue. I don't know, when it's all said and done, at least this race didn't get rained out. I mean, the truck race in the morning did, so tomorrow we've got basically sunrise to sunset. Trucks, Cup, Xfinity, all that happening all afternoon, all morning, all afternoon tomorrow. It's gonna be crazy, but at least today's race happened with maybe like, what was it, like maybe a 1 hour delay, roughly. I'll take it. Honestly, I'll take it at this point. Let's put this race on the groovy gauge and get out of here. I'm going to give today's race at Pocono Raceway a 45%. I mean, I can't say it was a bad race. It was just a below average race, I would say. For Pocono standards, I would say that's pretty mediocre. It's okay for Pocono standards. But overall, comparing this just broadly against other NASCAR races, had some things that were interesting. You know, the Jones and Reddick wreck was, you know, dramatic. You know, Bowman hitting the wall and having an issue. Logano dropping at the end there. The strategy call at the end. McDowell driving his way into the top 10. Hamlin closing the gap on Kevin Harvick, making things interesting in the closing laps, was certainly entertaining. You can't deny that, but certainly a far cry from the wall-to-wall, green-to-checkered thrills we saw at Talladega less than a week ago. So I'm going to give this race a 45%. Let me know what you guys think of today's Poconos race down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys would give it on your groovy gauges. I mentioned tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be crazy. Trucks are set for, I think, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. They're going to race through the morning. Xfinity, of course, is right after that, and then Cup takes place later in the afternoon. It's going to be a full day of racing tomorrow, and with multiple series on track before the Cup Series takes to the track, I wonder how that will affect the PJ1, how that will affect the grip in all 3 corners. I bet we will see a slightly different race tomorrow than we saw today, just because there's going to be hundreds of laps put on this track before the Cup cars even sniff it. So keep that in mind. I expect Harvick. I definitely expect the Joe Gibbs cars to be ones to reckon with tomorrow. Eric Jones seemed to have top 5 speed before he was caught up in that wreck. So watch out for the JGR cars. Stuart Haas is probably going to be fast again. I really want to see if Chevy, you know, I could say Hendrick specifically or Ganassi specifically, but Chevy in general. No cars finishing in the top 10 today. What happened? Chevy was looking so good at the beginning of this year. What happened? Well, someone at Chevrolet headquarters is scrambling right now. It's like that meme where in SpongeBob's brain where everything's on fire and everyone's trying to figure things out. That's what's happening at Chevy headquarters right now. And Rick Hendrick's probably at the center of it, mashing buttons on his keyboard, trying to find answers, trying to figure out what went wrong today for Chevrolet. But there you go. Kevin Harvick gets the win. Congrats to him. That is all I've got. Thank you all for watching this episode. Subscribe if you are new. We'll do this again tomorrow night. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Of course, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Couldn't do this show without the support I get from each and every single one of you. Really and truly does mean a lot to me. If you also want to support Out of the Groove, check out that top link down in the description. I greatly appreciate y'all taking the time to check that out. Lots of racing tomorrow, weather permitting, which forecast looks okay for tomorrow, so fingers crossed on that one. one. So again, follow me on Twitter because I will be live tweeting during all 3 races. It's going to be a busy day. I'm going to be burned out on the 3 turns at Pocono by the end of this thing. The amount of times they say, there's no turn 4, I should start like a counter. They're probably going to mention that there's no turn 4 at least 60 times tomorrow across all 3 broadcasts, so just prepare yourselves for it. It's going to be crazy. But anyway, I'm going to have fun watching. Hope you guys do as well. I have a video up shortly after the conclusion of the Cup race tomorrow night. Yeah, everyone get a good night's sleep and enjoy like 12 hours of racing almost tomorrow. I guess it's not 12, they're short races. Like 8 hours of racing tomorrow probably. Enjoy, should be fun. Thanks for watching, y'all.